This is Scott Dill with Real Story Group. I'm the Director of Business Development, and my colleague Jared Gingras will be joining us momentarily to take us through the heart of today's presentation. But before we get started, I did want to mention a couple of quick housekeeping items of note. First and foremost, if you ever have questions during today's presentation, you can enter those into the questions panel and then go to webinar control panel on the right hand side of your screen, and if time permits we'll get to those at the end. Otherwise we will be sure to email responses to you after today's webinar. Also, for our subscribers on the line, I do see several of those. You'll be able to access a recording of today's presentation in your subscriber library, and for all attendees on the line today, whether you're subscribers or not, you'll be getting a copy of today's slide deck. So thanks for joining today's presentation. I do want to talk a little bit about Real Story Group to those of you that are new to us. We are fundamentally an analyst firm that's covering the digital technology space. We've been at this for 18 years now, and we're a bit unique in this space as we're the only firm that we know of that actually doesn't do any work for the vendors we cover, nor do we advise them on any way. What this allows us to do is actually take a real pull no punches approach when detailing what the vendors do well, but maybe more importantly, what they don't do so well, where they might fall short for you. So we publish detailed evaluations about 100 plus vendors, 150 products from those vendors, and folks can subscribe to that research and get an understanding of their strengths and weaknesses, and also create customized shortlist and compare those vendors side by side. And these are the markets that we cover and the vendors that we evaluate in the different spaces. So you'll notice that there's a lot of different what we call subway lines here. This is based off the London Tube. You'll see that we cover areas such as web content management, marketing automation, customer data platforms, and what we're going to focus on today are the trends we expect to see in the purple line, which is digital asset management. Now, our approach to selecting technology is a little bit different, and we've really perfected this over our 18 years. And Jared, along with our founder, Tony Byrne, recently co-authored a book that details the right way to select technology. And if you meet the criteria that's listed in the blog that we have posted here, you're welcome to download a complimentary ebook version of the book. And then you can always purchase a hard copy from Amazon or Rosenfeld Media. So, please feel free to take a look at that after today's presentation. So as I mentioned, Jared is our managing director as well as our lead DAM analyst, and he's going to take us through the heart of today's presentation. So Jared, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Scott, and thank you all for joining us. And I did just want to take a moment to say a special thank you to those subscribers that are on the line. It's because of you that we get to do what we do. Scott mentioned that we don't work for vendors. We work for buyers of technology only, and potential buyers of technology, and people that are looking to make really hard technology decisions. And we really like to write and research and give you the real story on what's going on in the marketplace, and so for that, I just wanted to thank you for being subscribers and supporting what we do. So today we're going to be talking about trends to watch in 2019. This, as Scott mentioned, I am the lead DAM analyst, and the Real Story Group team has been following the DAM marketplace for quite a while now. I think since 2008, so this is the 11th year we've been following this. And most of the trends that we're seeing is coming directly from that research that we're doing and the consulting that we're doing on an ongoing basis with our clients. So I think we're going to be able to go through 7 big trends today, or 7 trends today, but there's really one big trend that we're seeing that's really having an impact on a lot of the other trends. And so let's start there. Maybe the biggest trend that we're seeing literally on a day-to-day basis from our subscribers and other clients and people that are calling us up and saying, in our company, omnichannel is hot again. And so, omnichannel, the term omnichannel is certainly not a new thing, but we're seeing people talking about omni all the time now. And that people are asking us, what are the key technologies that should be in our marketing technology stack to be able to support a true omni-channel experience for my customers, my constituents, my clients. And so one of the big trend that I'm highlighting here today is because of the resurgence in the interest in omni-channel experiences, we're seeing demands put on the DAM marketplace like never before. And because of that, we're seeing an ever increasing divide in the DAM marketplace. And this is something that's carried over since 2018. You know, we've been talking about this divide for some time, but the trend is not slowing down. And if anything, it's getting wider. So like I said, omnichannel is not new. You know, we've been on this journey for quite some time to deliver that integrated, seamless experience across multiple devices and touch points. But I think realistically, most organizations would say that they're probably really just about accomplishing a multi-channel world in most cases. But the technology is now caught up to many organizations' desires about creating that consistent experience across every touch point. And I think we're at a point where the rubber is hitting the road when it comes to omnichannel, and we can execute on this. And almost every organization that we talk to has omnichannel on their roadmap. And to get there, we got to be smart about what we're putting in our MarTech stack to be able to best facilitate those experiences. So with that said, let's talk about the reality of Omni and what Omni means and why people are struggling with Omni today. And I think it's a little bit of a history lesson here. So, you know, we've always had multiple touch points of where our clients and constituents and customers interact with our brands and our assets. But what's happened over the years is these systems of engagement. So when I talk about systems of engagement, I'm talking about places where your marketers tend to work. You know, maybe it's your web content management system, maybe it's your email and marketing automation tool, maybe it's your social publishing tools, maybe it's your CRM systems where you're looking at all of your customer activity. What I think we've seen over the last few years, especially, is there's a lot of content and data for that matter, but we're talking about assets in particular on this webinar, but there's a lot of assets that have found their homes in these systems of engagement. And what's happened is there's been some silos created here. And so when you want to create that consistent experience to your folks across every touch point, it's hard to do, because when you're talking to someone in email, you might be pulling from a different set of assets than when you're talking to someone via the web, or your salespeople who are utilizing your CRM might be pulling different assets from the CRM when they're talking to someone on the phone. You know, very different silos that people are pulling from has created a disjointed experience. So how do we think about this a little bit differently? So that's one impact, is be able to think about how do we get content out of our systems of engagement. Another trend that we're seeing, but with a direct result or follow on from these omni-channel desires, is that people want more personalization. And I think personalization requires a different kind of management of assets. So when we think about assets, you need to be managing personalized assets to truly deliver personalized experiences. And when it comes to looking at the DAM world, you know, many of the DAM systems out there are truly just simple libraries. And for some that might be okay, but for those who want to deliver true omni-channel experiences across every different touch point and every different device, simple libraries just aren't enough. You know, we need to be thinking about how do we manage our assets in a compound way. You know, maybe there's different derivative assets for different devices, but we want them to not be separate assets. We want them to be connected in a way so that we can leverage shared metadata across those assets, but also leave room for unique metadata based on a device type. Likewise, there's sophisticated relationships that need to be thought of among between assets and between metadata relationships, you know, so that metadata inherits in some cases and doesn't in others. And the point that I just want to make sure resonates here is that when you look at the DAM marketplace, not all DAM systems can deliver on this notion of compound assets. Some can, but some just can't. And you need to, as a buyer, you need to be really aware of where you want to get to when it comes to managing personalized content for this omni-channel world. Trend number 3 is, again, another impact of the omni-channel desires. I think we hear it over and over again from our clients that tracking rights has become more critical than ever. And I'm sure many of you work in highly regulated industries, but even if you don't, everyone is thinking about how do we manage our usage rights across when it comes to our assets? How do we manage our talent rights when it comes to model releases and audio and video contracts that we have with studios and individual talent artists? And we've been doing a bunch of strategy work with some really large clients recently, and when I talk to their compliance and legal folks, this comes up over and over again, and they tell me all the time that what keeps them up at night is some of their assets that are out of compliance, that have expired or not being used in the way that their contracts specify. They get out there into the wild and are being used in the wrong way, and they fear of lawsuits, and it's not just a fear. They're getting sued in some cases, and we hear over and over again from some brands who say, in most cases we just pay the fines because we can't defend ourselves in many cases because the assets are out of our control, where we've lost control of some of our assets. And so I bring this up in the omni-channel discussion because as we talk about delivering assets to more touch points and in a way that's more consistent across the board, we need to know where our assets are being used and who is using them. We need to be able to know when something is coming up for expiration so that we can either replace them or take them down, or at least have a plan around that. And we need to be able to know when we get sued or when people questioned our usage of assets. We need to be able to confidently pull down reports about where things are living, where things are being seen, who is seeing them, and again, give us a plan to be able to quickly take things down without having to do it one by one. Trend number 4, again, another impact of the omni-channel desires, and this is measurement is now required at certainly a campaign level, like it has been for quite some time, but now many organizations are thinking about how do we measure at the asset level as well? Can we actually understand our ROI at the asset level? And so, when you talk to marketers, everyone puts so much work into creating assets and money as well, and then those assets become the building blocks of your campaigns, and people spend so much money building out these campaigns and executing on your campaigns. Many organizations that we talk to tell us, we have difficulty measuring anything. I hear that on a day-to-day basis. I'm sure that resonates with many of you. Others, I think, have gotten to the point where they've gotten pretty good at managing analytics at the campaign level, so that you can hopefully start to attribute sales and activity back to certain campaigns, and then begin to put an ROI on your campaign and measure actual results. Where some organizations, some of the more savvy organizations, are taking this a step even further, is they're saying, well, yeah, campaigns are analytics are good and that's all meaningful, but how do we get to the next level? How can we get down to understanding which assets are working within the campaign? Which assets are working better than others? Which assets are we spending a lot of money on and not getting a lot of return on? Which assets are we doing cheaply and getting a bigger return on? And with all the data that we have today at our fingertips, tying that back to a single source of truth is now possible, and people are starting to say, let's measure things at the individual asset level. So having a DAM system in place that can aggregate some of that data in a meaningful way, that's powerful. And I think this is an area that's continuing to grow as buyers ask for more data to be brought back to the asset level, and then from that, really use that data to be able to inform future decisions when it comes to assets. Maybe we reuse an asset again, or maybe we create similar assets because we know these work better than others. It's really some powerful insights can come out of that. That brings us to trend number 5. And again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to enter it in the GoToWebinar control panel. We'll get to as many as we can as we wrap up. Trend number 5, though, again, we're going to come back to another impact of the omnichannel revolution, and that is buyers are finally ready for content hubs. Now, if anyone's been following the DAM space over the last few years, we've had several vendors really go out on a limb and push the envelope a bit and challenge the market a bit and say, hey, our systems are not just for assets, they're for more than assets, they're for content as well. And I think in some industries that notion resonated right away. One industry in particular is sort of a more of the retail space, where many retail organizations had a lot of content and if you think about a product description, if you will, around an individual product item, they had that product information along with some product data stored in their PIM systems, or their product information management systems, and then they had their product related assets in a DAM system. When some of these vendors came to the table with a solution that married up the content and assets in theoretically the same place, that really resonated with them. And so we saw a number of retail organizations and CPG companies say, hey, this notion of a content hub really resonates. Let's bring it in and consolidate our PIM and DAM systems into one, and have a single content hub. Now, that's just one example in one industry. What we've seen is other industries now saying, hey, there's value in us in managing more than just our images and videos in a DAM system. Let's start to think bigger. Let's start to pull out more content out of those systems of engagement that I mentioned earlier, move them lower in our stack so that we can then power our systems of engagement from a single source of truth. And so now it's not just product information or product descriptions. It can be things like white papers and case studies. And I'm sure you, like your organization like ours and any others, there's this massive proliferation of infographics, and how do we store those and optimize those for the right channel. There's email snippets that get reused in across multiple emails, but maybe a snippet of email also appears on the web, or in print, or or even in a kiosk, or in some other physical channel as well. There can also be things like your advertising assets that need to be shared across the organization, to people across the organization who are interacting with your consumers in different ways. All these salesy type assets are looking for a home too. And so if you start to think about your DAM systems as a potential home for content that is beyond just the traditional images and video, this can be a really powerful way to think about it. Now, what this means for the DAM space is quite interesting. Now, here's a kind of rough and dirty screenshot from our tool that we offer to our subscribers. It's called the Real Quadrant Shortlist Generator. And what I did for this demonstration is to put in the integrated marketing content hub scenario as the key use case that you were trying to solve for. And what's interesting here is if these little dots, and I know it's not great graphic here, but if these little dots illustrate where vendors fall on this real quadrant shortlist generator, you'll see that there's really only 5 that get really a 75% or higher score based on their capabilities to fundamentally solve this integrated marketing content hub scenario that I've been describing. Now, there's some that can do it to a certain extent that fall in the middle of the 50% scale, but there's really only a few that were fundamentally built to solve this, and others are playing catch up. So if that's something that's of interest to you, I encourage you to really pay attention to those vendors that are building their systems to solve this challenge. One interesting to note, and those of you who subscribe to our research, I'll be happy to talk about this with you, and you can read about it in our research. Some of the biggest names in DAM, and some of those big names that are always in the conversation in enterprises because their marketing teams are really, really strong and omnipresent. I think you'll find what we've seen from them is that they are retrofitting an existing product to be able to solve this scenario. And what we found is that they've had some struggles doing that, and they've hit some roadblocks. And so you want to be real clear in choosing a vendor that was fundamentally built for this and understand the limits of those vendors who are backing into this scenario and trying to get their system to do something that it wasn't originally built to do. Trend number 6 is around a potential bubble that we see emerging in the DAM marketplace. If some of you attended our 2019 predictions webinar a few weeks back, you might have noticed that we were predicting a bursting of the bubble in 2019. Now that might be a bit of a stretch prediction, but I think as a potential DAM buyer in 29, you need to at least be aware of this bubble that's developing. Here's our logo landscape, as we call it, where we start to chart where we see the various DAM vendors and their products falling on a sort of complexity spectrum from complex to simpler here. And I think it's interesting to note, I mentioned earlier, we've been covering the space for some 11 years now, and people have been talking about consolidation for quite some time, and we certainly had some acquisitions in 2018 and in the years prior. Aprimo bought Atom, Esco bought Media Beacon, and then of course Binder bought WebDAM, and then of course the big one in 2018 was that Sitecore bought Style Labs. But while we've been talking about potential consolidation, we see more market entrants on a day-to-day basis. We added about 4 new vendors to our research this year, and we have another 2 to 4 in progress where we've been doing briefings and doing additional customer and integrator research, and we expect to be releasing about 2 to 4 in the next few months. And there's no shortage of vendors that keep coming into this marketplace, and that's something to just be aware of, because I feel like what I've started to see as an analyst is that some of these vendors are just creating redundant platforms, platforms that are really hard to differentiate between them. If you took the logos off some of them, you'd have a real hard time understanding which vendor was which, because there's a lot of redundant functionality that's being built. And to me, that's a sign that something's got to give. So maybe that brings us to trend number 7, and I think that's a bit related. I think we've seen vendors who have also recognized some of that redundancy, some of that some of those commodity type DAM functionalities being the core of their products, and some of these vendors, especially on the lower end of the marketplace, are really trying to say, how can we stand out? How can we differentiate? And I think we've seen some of these vendors forced to specialize. Now, in years past, one of the ways that we've called out that vendors have kind of decided to specialize is to take a more of a vertical alignment. So some have said, well, we're a dam for the healthcare space, or we're a dam for the legal vertical, or we're a dam for the CPG space, we're a dam for retail. We in 2018 we actually shifted that a bit, because what we were finding was, while the vendors certainly put a lot of effort into their marketing around them as a healthcare specialist, if you will, I think in reality those specialties didn't always make its way back into the technology itself. So in essence, what we found is some of the differentiator there when it came to a vertical was actually in their experience working for verticals. So their people might have had some experience, but the technology wasn't all that different, even though they might have called themselves a vertical specialist. So instead, there's a bunch of different scenarios that we think are really critical for you all to be thinking about when you decide to put together the right damn shortlist, right? We want to understand what it is you're trying to do. And this is our attempt at cataloging some of these scenarios in 5 broad categories, but each one of these scenarios that we list here is really different approaches that vendors take when they build their systems. I already talked about the integrated marketing content hub and the few that can actually achieve that, but in the some of the areas that I think are kind of important are product asset management, like we talked about. Retail and CPG companies have put some demands on some dam systems, and some dam vendors have catered to those demands and built their systems in a way that lend itself to a little bit better than others when it comes to managing images and other assets around the product. Likewise, highly regulated environments. So it's not just healthcare, but big pharma and legal organizations find themselves needing to meet certain certifications, and I think that's where you can get some benefit from certain vendors who have a little bit more knowledge and experience in that space. So I raise this as really the most important thing of this presentation, because if you are putting together a short list, you need to ask yourselves, which of these scenarios are you trying to accomplish? Because you're going to get a different short list based on which ones are most important to you. And I'll bring you back to that real quadrant shortlist generator that I mentioned earlier. You can't just look at a single snapshot view of the marketplace to put together your shortlist. And I even take that back to the logo landscape that I showed. That logo landscape that I showed, is a single snapshot view. So that's our first attempt at making sense of the vendors that are out there. But I don't want you to use that to put together your shortlist. I want you to really ask yourselves, which scenarios are you trying to solve? Find out which vendors are fundamentally built to solve those scenarios, and use that as your most important key discriminator in putting together which vendors should be on your shortlist. And then once you have that shortlist, certainly do your due diligence and make the vendors jump through some hoops and prove to you that they're the best fit for what it is you're trying to do. So with that said, we'll wrap up here. We have just a few minutes left. We did have a couple questions. Let's see. 2 really great questions rose to the top here. So can you describe what is meant by simpler, mid-range, and complex? Yes, Alice, that's no problem. So that goes back to that single snapshot view that I was talking about, that logo landscape. So as analysts, we try to make sense of the marketplace. And one way that we try to make sense of a very confusing marketplace, which we cover some 30 vendors or more, and there's another 30 that we could add to that list tomorrow easily. But of what we think are the most significant 30 vendors in the marketplace, we need to try to make some sense out of that. So one way we do that is to try to put them on a spectrum of complexity. So with some of the vendors are built for a single use case or one or two use cases. Those really fall on the right side, on the simpler end of the spectrum. And then the vendors that are more suited to those supporting those omni-channel experiences and multiple use case scenarios. No one's good at every use case scenario, but they're built to have a bit more flexibility to solve more use cases. Those are the vendors that appear more on the complex side. Hope that helps. Happy to chat more if you think it's helpful. Last question is around Binder, and it's actually, do you think Binder's acquisition of WebDAM will impact the support of the WebDAM product? So Lori, yeah, I have my concerns about that. You know, I do know that they are updating it. It seems to have taken a bit slower pace, but you know, Binder has fundamentally 3 dams under their umbrella right now, and so just by the nature of that, I'm a bit concerned that WebDAM is going to get the attention that they need. Interestingly enough, I'm sure some of you are aware of the firm Acquia, who is closely related to the Drupal web content management open source product. Acquia has actually OEM'd Binder's WebDAM as their DAM and is selling it to their client base. You know, particularly Drupal users who want to have a full-blown digital assets management system associated with the Drupal implementation. But when you buy that from Acquia, it's actually what you're getting is Binder's WebDAM. So I don't think it's going to go away. I think they'll keep it around, but I am concerned about the pace of innovation there. But that's a concern that I have whenever acquisitions happen. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We're just about out of time, and I really appreciate all of you joining us. And again, thank you for your support. Happy to chat more about DAM. Feel free to contact us on the website and or LinkedIn. And thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.